Hello and welcome everyone to this webinar on OES and hybrid cloud storage. I'm Madan, the product manager over Open Enterprise Server. I'll just be introducing the topic today and handing it off to Vijay Babu, who is the distinguished engineer and the lead architect over Open Enterprise Server. As many of you might know, we introduced the cloud integrated storage as a component of Open Enterprise Server 2018, but as a technical preview. So right now there's a lot of work going on to improve the stability, reliability, performance, and non-functional aspects of the technology to make it production ready for as part of OES 2018 SP1. So in this webinar, you are going to learn what are the various things that are part of this technology, what are we doing, what more are we planning to do, and where we would like to take some feedback and also identify a few of you who we can work with closely as part of this journey. So having said that, I won't take any more time and I hand it over to Vijay, the distinguished engineer who is leading this activity. Vijay, over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Madan. Hi, good morning or good evening, as the case may be. Let me quickly start with the setup. Hope you can hear me fine and as well as see the slides. Madan, can you see the slides?
Yes, Vijay. Loud and clear, and slides are visible too.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, so do any of you manage the storage infrastructure that's growing at more than 20%? You don't have to tell an answer, so I'm just going to ask a few questions. Do you want to reduce your storage cost by more than 40%? Do you want to get more out of your existing storage investments instead of expanding the investments further and further? Do any of you think more than 50% of your data is inactive? We will run a few polls along the way, but if the answer is yes to one of the above questions or more of the above questions, let's stay tuned for the exciting new technology from Micro Focus that will help solve some of the problems that you may have. The cloud integrated storage capability will orchestrate the movement of data from private and public cloud with traditional storage to address a very specific use case of leveraging object stores or cloud storage solutions. When we say object store, we refer to IBM CloverSafe, Cloudion, and many such solutions, or SUSE Enterprise Storage, and as well as public cloud storage solutions like Amazon S3 and solutions from Google and Microsoft, right? So this cloud integrated solution will help you leverage these object or cloud storage technologies to move the less used data to those solutions to reduce the cost of ownership on your primary storage. So you can free up your SAN NAS storage and leverage it to store hot data, and the cold data can be moved to the object store solutions. It can be an object storage solution that's within your premises, or it can be a public cloud storage solution, right? So the CIS will support both scenarios. All this can happen without end users noticing any change. It's completely transparent to the end users. You as an administrator can have policies that will drive the gains that you want to see. Right? The primary objective is to drive down the cost of ownership for you on managing your storage infrastructure and helping you maintain the growth rate that your infrastructure is witnessing, while improving the agility from the IT side to respond to the needs of the business, at the same time staying compliant and ensuring the security of the infrastructure is guaranteed, right? Before we go to the next one, Madan, do you want to run a poll? Madan, can you hear me?
So we'll give it 30 seconds
Thanks,
for
Mama.
people to take this poll. Okay, so I think large percentage have voted. 70% of them have voted, and it's about a 80-20 split. Okay, I'll close this poll now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Vijay, you can continue.
Okay, thanks, Mother. Okay, so the CAA solution is a network service, right? With OES 2018, you will have a set of agents that you will likely have in your OES estate, right? That would run in each of the OES servers that you have. But the CAS can be installed and configured to run on one of your OES servers. It's a network service that will help you manage the entire OES estate, right? And we'll talk about the value proposition shortly. Like I said, so it's a network service. So what this will help you do is you can manage and you can create visibility across your entire storage estate. You don't have to manage each server or each volume at a granular level, right? So you have the entire estate view, and you can select, you can create a policy of migrating, let's say, like data that has not been used in the last 6 months can be migrated to my nearline object store within my enterprise, right? And then I just switched to a different screen.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay. Oh, I think the poll just got closed, so that's why it's far. That's fine. Okay. So with the network view, so you don't have to manage each server or each volume, right? You have global visibility, and so you will first of all get to know how much hot and cold data that you have in your entire infrastructure. Then you can create policies that can be applied across different volumes. So, and the nicer part about this is it nearly has no configuration on each of the OES servers. Okay, so most of the configuration only needs to be done on the CAS server, and once the CAS server is configured, it will auto discover other OES servers and collect the information and present that to you. While this infrastructure is very interesting, we've decided to build it with analytics built in natively, right? So you will have complete visibility right from the get-go. So the analytics that you will gain from analyzing the infrastructure can help you create the right policies, and it will provide visibility as the migration is going on natively without any add-on solution, right? So analytics will power the whole platform and whole policies without bringing in any other external product to create visibility into this whole thing. Okay. Let's go slide. And we looked at a few barriers that customers may have in embracing object and cloud storage technologies to help reduce the cost. One of the top things that we learned was the concerns around security, right? Largely when somebody is considering a public cloud service. And with the CAS capability, we will provide encryption capabilities that will help encrypt the data as it leaves the organization, right? And the key management would be done at any granular level that you choose. So the data is always kept secure. The keys never leave the organization. So you can be guaranteed that any kind of exposure on the cloud storage solution will not expose your organization's data. I think that's a crucial thing. And it is an optional capability. If you're using an on-premises object store, you can choose not to have that option enabled. Another key challenge that we've learned is when customers want to embrace some kind of a cloud or object storage solution, the lack of visibility is one barrier to embrace a solution. And with CAS, to begin with, you will be able to have visibility on your existing traditional storage infrastructure. You can discover all your existing OES volumes and the servers and understand how much data that is there, how much is hot and cold. Then once you create the policies and move some data to an object store, then CA solution will provide analytics about the kind of data that is moving, whether your policy is being effective or not, and in the future we might even suggest what changes that can come in. And one of the other challenges in embracing an object cloud storage solution is the latency that is involved. And to prevent exposing the latency to end users, we have brought in some caching techniques that will ensure that the end users don't necessarily see as much latency that when they're accessing their data, right? The way that we do is we actually cache some of the metadata, which is the most common operation. The users are walking up and down their files tree. And since the metadata is cached locally, they will not see any performance impact. And when they try to access files that are stored on premises in the file and block storage, then there will not be any performance impact. Only when they try to access some files that have been migrated off to an object store, there will be a little bit of an extra latency, right? And based on the policies, like these are files that they are likely never to access. So when they access it, they're going to see some extra latency based on where the object or cloud storage solution is placed at. Okay. And in the future, we are looking at additional capabilities such as deduplication and compression to reduce the amount of traffic, and as well as enable some features to move from one object or cloud storage solution to another solution. Like those are things that we are looking at into the future. Okay. Madan, do you want to run a survey?
Yes, Vijay. This is just for those 20% who said they are using some or the other kind of object storage. Just two quick polls on for those of you who are using private cloud storage. Can you just let us know which is the vendor you are using? Or if you don't use private cloud storage and use only public cloud storage, you can choose the last option there. Okay, I'm going to be closing this poll, sharing the results now for all of you to have a quick peek at that. And let me also run the next poll, which is on public cloud, so that we have a feel for that as well. If you're using public cloud storage today, do let us know which of those public cloud storages you're using today. Okay, I think those who wanted to vote have voted. So, and here are the quick results for you to see. With this, Vijay, go ahead and continue with the presentation. We will do the other slides subsequently, other polls subsequently.
Okay. Thanks, Mohan. Yeah, so I think some of the architectural highlights of the solution is to it's a new solution built in with modern technologies. Like I just talked about, security is built in, insights driven, auto discovery of the OES servers, due to the network service nature, this can provide single pane of glass for managing your entire OES estate. And this service scales horizontally. So as you start making CAS manage a larger and larger percentage of your OES infrastructure, so this can be scaled horizontally, and it's been built with the microservices architecture model. So you can scale each service independently. We'll talk about some of that subsequently. The tech stack, I mean, we use a lot of modern technologies to help deliver these capabilities in a very agile fashion. Due to the microservices model, we will be able to provide the newer and newer additions and the features for each of the services in a very rapid fashion. So like we talked, like discovery and configuration is done using Zookeeper, and we are also using clustering services for node level high availability. Okay. And these are all these microservices run as containerized applications. And these are the various microservices that comprise CAS. You can learn a lot more about it as you start to play with this capability to the future. And CAS runs in 4 deployment models. At the basic level, all microservices run in a single node. I mean, it's essentially like a single server. You will obviously want to have some level of HA for that solution. And the key service is the data microservice that actually moves the data from your on-premises infrastructure, from a traditional infrastructure to an object store and back. And that can be scaled explicitly or can also be scaled using the capabilities that will come with CAS. Okay. So when is it available? Like Madan said earlier, it's available right now. It's been available with OES 2018 as technology preview. And with SP1, we are making a lot of changes to make sure that it'll address all the enterprise use cases and requirements. So you can start to experiment with it with OES 2018. We'll talk about how you can go about doing it in the subsequent slides. How do you go about deploying CAS? I think we would think it will be good for you to get an overview about your existing estate. So once you install CAS on an OES 2018 node and have much of your OES infrastructure up to OES 2018, we have agents running on each of the OES servers, and that can work with the CAS server to provide information about your existing storage estate, and that will create a dashboard like what you're seeing on the screen, right? So once you have CAS server and the agents running, it will create information about the various volumes that are in the network and provides you a high-level view of what your total infrastructure looks like. And in this snapshot, we see about 6 volumes that have been discovered, and I see that 75% of my data has been called. In this case, they have not been touched or accessed in the last 3 months. That's pretty good information for me to first gain, so that I can choose to act upon, right? So once we do the analysis, once you do the analysis of your existing storage infrastructure, then you can start to determine the objectives that you want to have. Like, do you want to save 25% of your estate, or you want to move about 50% of your data if you consider any data that's not been accessed in the last 6 months as inactive data? Then you can choose to move that data onto an object store or a cloud store. You can also determine what type of object or cloud store that you want to have. You could go with IBM CleverSafe or Cloudion or SUSE Enterprise Storage or any such on-premises object store solutions, or you can also consider Microsoft or Amazon solutions. Right now, CAS supports any S3, any Amazon S3 compatible object store. So we use S3 as the transport layer and the protocol to talk to the object store. So any solution that supports the S3 interface that we will work with. In our website, we also publish the list of object stores that we would have tested with. So you can decide on the object stores and decide on the kind of gain that you want to see. So with the dashboard that we quickly saw, that will also allow you to drill down to volume level. You can identify the list of volumes that you would want to move the data from, right? Once you do that, you can create some collections and obviously policies. You can decide that on a 6-month policy or any other appropriate policy that you choose to have, and pilot with a smaller set of volumes, right? And subsequently scale it across the entire infrastructure. Madan, do you want to run a survey at this point?
Let's again do a quick survey on what would you like your cloud storage tier as? This question primarily comes because based on the beta and the feedback we've had for the tech preview when we were doing this for OES 2018, currently this is being released as a secondary tier for your existing data. We had very varied feedback where people wanted it to be the primary tier, which means they want even their frequently accessed data to be on a cloud storage, probably a private cloud storage which is sitting in the data center itself, all the way up to this cloud storage tier being a tertiary tier for existing dynamic storage technology. So we have had requests from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum that's possible. So we are just wondering what is it that you are interested in. Are you looking to do a primary tier, secondary tier, tertiary tier, or a combination of this? Okay, I see that about 70% of you have voted. I'm going to be closing the survey now and I'll display the results for a second. So this is how you have currently voted. Thanks for that. Continue, Vijay.
Okay, thanks, Madan. Yeah, I think like we just talked, it's a brand new capability. Prior to the configuration, you need to ensure that few infrastructure components are made available, and the needed schema also needs to be extended. I mean, as long as one of the OES servers is upgraded to OES 2018, then that will happen, or you can manually do it. So there are a few installation screens where you'll have to configure some of the common capabilities, right? And once that is set up, the OES, this CAS component, the server pieces would come out. And like we talked, the initial objective would be to create visibility of your existing traditional storage infrastructure. You can discover various volumes. You can understand which volumes have what kind of data and how much has been accessed in the last few months and years and so on and so forth. So you will get full visibility into your existing infrastructure with that. Once you have that, I think you can start to determine your object store or cloud storage vendor, and you can go manage the cloud or the object store accounts. So like we talked earlier, any S3 compatible object or cloud storage solution works with CAS at the moment. With the additional information that you had given us earlier, we would be looking at supporting more and more object or cloud storage solutions, so object and cloud storage vendors into the future. Okay, so you first go ahead and create an account with the appropriate object or cloud storage solution, and after that you go ahead and create the policies. Right, I think that the bigger benefit of having a network service is you can create fewer policies and apply it across different volumes in your entire infrastructure. So you don't have to manage, you don't have to create a policy for each volume or each server, right? You just need to have fewer policies. You can say, and the policies that we support are very granular. You can create a policy saying, move the data that has not been accessed in the last 6 months. You can say, you can choose to move the data that has not been modified in the last few months. You can have more granular filters, like including names and sizes and paths and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty detailed policy framework that you can choose to have. So you create a few policies. After that, you come to the collections page. If you want to create a group of volumes, we believe that you will not want to manage each volume one at a time, and at the same time, you're not going to manage the whole estate, right? So you can create a volume with a set of, you can create a collection with a set of volumes that you would want to use this capability with, right? I mean, you identify a server or a set of servers with 3 volumes, then you create a collection. And once you have that, you can go ahead and create a new tier, right? So which essentially, what you do is you select the server, you select the volume, you select the target endpoint, the target cloud account where you want the data to go to. You decide whether you want to have encryption enabled or not. Then you select a policy that you want to apply it, right? And you can also determine the schedule that you want this capability to run with, right? So as you know, moving this data is a low critical operation. So we would think that you want to choose off business hours to run this. While we talk about this whole, so this is only for migrating the data from primary storage to an object store, right? Anytime when the users are accessing the data, when they're accessing a data that has been migrated off to a cloud store, it will be recalled immediately, right? So that is not dependent on the policies or the schedule times. So you create the tiers, and once that's created, and then you can run it, you can decide what schedule that you want to run your tiers. Then you will be able to see reports on your existing job that you had created. And we also have a very nice dashboard that will give full visibility into the kind of operations, the amount of data that's been moved into the cloud, and which files went at what time, and it can be very, very granular, right? So you will have full visibility of the type of data that's moving and various statistics around that, right? So this whole CAS infrastructure can be managed with different roles. So we have some master admin, which is all powerful. We have 3 levels of administrators that can manage this capability. So the one with least privileges can be used by the help desk personnel, where they can monitor the existing policies. They can't create any new policies, right? So this is about the overall OES CAS management interface. Madan, do you have any additional polls to run?
Yeah, I have 2 of them. One probably we'll keep it to the end of the webinar. But one more quick question to understand, based on different geographies, regulations seem to play a role in adoption of public cloud storage. So we just wanted to hear from our customers who are in this webinar, do regulations play a role in your organization's strategy on adopting public cloud storage or not? Okay, I'll give it another 5 seconds before I close the poll. Okay, about 70% of you have voted. Let me close the poll and also quickly share the results with you. So this is how our audience have responded. So we'll factor this in our discussions. Thank you, Vijay. You can continue with the presentation.
Thanks, Madan. Okay. We briefly looked at the CAS management console, right? What are the end users experience, right? So end users, as usual, they have the drives, they access the files, but in the back end, when the policies run, when the data is moved from the OES servers, OES managed data stores onto an object store, the users actually don't see any change. I mean, in this screenshot, you will see you'll see a different icon on the client side. So we will try to make sure that this capabilities can be controlled. You can turn it on or off. So you can choose to expose if the users should know about these migrated files or not. But overall, they get to see the files. They can click the folders, go through the folders, walk up and down the directory tree. Now, no changes at all, right? But in the back end, you have your regular policies that are moving the data, right? And when they choose to access a file that has been migrated, then the file is automatically recalled from the target object store. If it was encrypted, it gets decrypted. Then the file is moved to the primary storage. Then the file is presented to the end user. Right? And all of this happens transparently without any intervention from anybody. Right? So the migration of data happens through policies, and recalling the data is automatic when the users try to access the files. And like the dashboard that we saw earlier, we will be able to provide a detailed report on the kind of data that is getting recalled. So that will help fine-tune the policies that you put in place. Right? Yeah, so that's the reporting dashboard that we are looking at. So we've talked about the collection and the granular volume level information that you can get from CAS Management Console. With the configuration setting, you'll have different settings on that. So we've talked about the role-based access control, the read admin and execute admin, and as well as the root admin. Okay, so that's about the overall OES CAS capabilities. With SP1, as we talked about, making it more enterprise ready. With SP1, we'll be supporting Microsoft SQL. With different versions of MS SQL. And we will also be providing a seamless way to move the existing DST infrastructure to the CAS infrastructure. Right? As you've seen through this webinar, that this is really DST on steroids. You have, instead of needing to manage on a single server, single volume basis, you get to manage the whole infrastructure with a single pane of glass, with a few policies applied across your entire infrastructure with the right compliance needs that you have. So we will provide some capabilities to move your DST infrastructure over with minimal or no downtime. The primary focus for SP1 is to ensure that the solution scales and performs well in large infrastructure. So you can apply it in very large deployments and gain the benefits that the solution offers. So you can really, depending on how much of inactive data that you have, with the right kind of policies, you can gain significant dollar savings by leveraging object and cloud storage solutions. And with the improvements that will come with SP1, it will scale and perform significantly better and address your problems. Okay. With SP1, we also are planning to simplify the install workflow. We will eliminate a few manual steps, and the operations will be made more intuitive. And we are also working on making the user interface more and more intuitive. As you've seen earlier, the infrastructure already provides native analytics, and we will enhance it even further. So in summary, CAS is a network service that helps you manage your whole data infrastructure in an intelligent fashion, with the single objective to reduce the total cost of ownership significantly, while improving your flexibility to address the business needs. Because as you move inactive data and free up this primary SAN and NAS storage, you can use that for other purposes, right? I think that's kind of the overall view about CAS. Hope you're excited and will be willing to try it out. please join us during the SP1 beta, and it would be great if you can upgrade your infrastructure to OES 2018 and play with CAS, which is available as a technology preview in your limited environment, and provide us feedback, which we can possibly incorporate into SP1. Okay. Madan, back to you, Madan.
So one thing we want to do as part of the journey of removing the technical preview tag on cloud integrated storage and making it mainstream is we want to work with as many of you as possible to understand your needs, to see how this technology can play a role and answer all the questions. If you had seen the first slide which I opened with, have any of those challenges, how can CAS help you deal with one or more of those challenges you face? I'm quickly going to run a short poll. If you are willing to collaborate with us, just say yes or no. I'll see if I can work out who answered a yes, and then identify that and try to work with you offline, and we will try to evolve the story together along with you. Okay, so I think 60% of you have voted, and I'll close the poll now. I don't think this result is of general interest to everyone, so I'll not display the results. But I know if you have any questions, please post them on the question window. I know many of you have posted questions and we have been answering them as they come in. There are a few still open questions that are out there which we are still responding, but keep them coming. I can also read out some of those questions which are yet to be answered, and we'll go with that, and we'll also answer this on the chat window too. Are there any plugins to install on the Windows client for the X icon indications display? So the X icon indication display is coming because we are marking the files as offline files, and that's a feature of the Windows workstations. So we have had feedback where people are pleased with that differentiation, and there are also others who said we don't want the differentiation, that's going to do a lot of help desk calls. So to prevent that or to get better control over it, yes, you're right, we need an agent on the Windows side. That's currently not planned as part of the SP1 activities, but will be taken up as part of a post SP1 activity. So that's in our backlog. We'll have to prioritize and see when we are able to deliver on that. Are the attachment content indexed in the Elasticsearch index? I'm not sure if you're referring to the email attachment content, because this is all files. Vijay, do you want to take that and probe a little further?
Yeah, Madan, I'm not sure what is being referred as the attachment content. Yeah, I mean, like, as a generic thing that we don't do anything with the data at the moment, right? So
right.
That's all. Yeah.
So at this time, we only operate on the metadata of the files, age, size, trustees, and things like that. Though we have plans based on our expanded portfolio, we have a lot of analytic capabilities now, which we are having thoughts about and discussions internally to see if we can do the data analytics integration also as part of this. So that is still something on our drawing boards, not yet part of any of the committed deliverables. So which OES version supports CAS? We have introduced this as a tech preview in OES 2018. If somebody is interested to try that out even in production, you can approach or drop us a note. We will try to sit with you, evaluate your use case, and see if we can support you using CAS in production in OES 2018. But for general availability, CAS will be supported in general availability with OES 2018 SP1. Not too sure if filer won't do everything we need.
Madan, when is 2018 SP1 targeted? Do you want to provide some guidance around that?
So 2018 SP1 currently is targeted for the last quarter of this year or early part of next year. We'll be a little more deterministic on the timelines and during the third quarter of this year. There's a lot of development that's going on. We're also again changing the SLES base underneath. So, and we are focusing a lot on SIF's performance and other activities for which we want a certain amount of results to be seen before we make that available. But if you are interested to try this ahead of time, do not hesitate. We can always make things work. If you are interested, like I said, we are willing to work with you, understand it, customize it. We'll make some solution available for you upfront, even without waiting for the FCS. We can work around that and try to get something going for you. Not so sure if filer won't do everything we need. Now it's possible filer can sit without any changes on top of a CAS backed volume and do everything you need. And there are also discussions on filer supporting some of the data tiering capabilities, but those are again for a different discussion with the filer product manager at some later point. But yeah, whatever we are doing, we are ensuring that our ecosystem, not just filer, but the other third-party ecosystem around us are carried forward, and they are not intrusively interrupted or stop working with any of the changes we are introducing. The CAS agent support an OES version, meaning support CAS agent. So the CAS agents are today part of OES 2018 and above. At this time, there are no current plans to backport it to the OES 2015 line. So the automatic discovery of your storage network, all that which I showcased, is all part of OES 2018 and above. So you introduce an OES 2018 server, configure CAS on that. It's going to be able to run and discover other OES 2018 servers in the network and be able to display this dashboard. So that's how it is currently. CAS supports OES 11, OES 2 2015 and Windows Server volume. No, like I answered, it's only 2018 and above at this point in time. At some point in future, we may consider expanding this support to include OES 2015 SP1, but nothing beyond that. At this time, our scope is limited to 2018 and above. Okay, so Eric has clarified that his question is on file content, not on attachment. So Eric, like we clarified, at this time we work on file and file system metadata. We do not directly go into the content and index it. But like I said, there are discussions going on around it. We have various analytic products within the expanded microfocus now. So we are evaluating all possible options there and to see where we can add more value additions in terms of even digging deeper into the data and giving some rich analysis of that for further utilization. So we'll be having more conversations around it. So if you are interested in data analytics part of it and how we can leverage or optimize things for you or analyze the OES data for you in terms of content and come back, please do drop us a note. We'll be more than happy to do it. Like I said, we are in the very early stage of discussions on those. So any inputs and feedback will be very valuable to steer us in the right direction. Does feature like version, is it already built in? We don't have a versioning built in, but that's one of the value propositions that is being discussed. So the one thing this architecture enables us is we are moving the data. So as part of the data move, so many value additions are possible. One of them is data analytics, another is versioning, deduplication, compression. So many things are possible. So it opens up a whole horizon of new value addition that can be done on top of this. What are the next set of things? Honestly, we don't have an answer right now. These are, like I said, possibilities we are exploring, and we are going to be looking a lot to you for feedback on prioritizing some of those and taking them forward. Backup software can backup cold data via CAS. There's no reason it can't. But is that something you want to do is the question I think you'll have to ask yourself, because the way things go with object storage, uh, for example, if you take something like SUSE enterprise storage, things and the reliability and the cost of ownership are so low that it assures you a reliability that you probably may not even want to back up some of these kind of stale or cold data. So there are things which are going to be very specific to your use case and environment. If I still adopt this, and do I still want to use all my processes the standard traditional way I have been doing it for all these years, or does the adoption of these new technologies mean there is scope for optimization and I can optimize on how much of backup I do and what kind of backup I do? So it's not a blind repeat whatever I have been doing traditionally, let me repeat that for CAS also. That probably is not going to give you the whole value of CAS. You have to apply some logic to it and probably leverage the benefits that CAS or the backend of CAS also gives you, and say maybe some of these workloads and the data, because of the way they are backed up and where they are backed up, I do not any longer need to back up the data on my end. Take S3 for example. They back up and assure you of their availability at some 99 point some levels, right? So it doesn't make sense if you have chosen public cloud as your CAS tier and you have moved your stale data onto there. Doesn't make sense for you to back up all the data on-prem again. So you'll have to carefully evaluate what you're doing and how you're doing it and get some optimizations out of it. Okay, that's probably the last of the unanswered question in the question panel. I'll keep the question window and the session live for another 5 minutes. Okay, so here's the follow-up question to that from Anderson Lee. When the backup software backs up the source OES 2015 volume, the tearing file will be back to the online again due to the backup. So this is the recall part of it. So typically, even in your dynamic storage technology today, we have to configure some exclusion policies so that you don't inadvertently pull down files which have been migrated onto the secondary volume back again to the primary volume, because your antivirus or your backup software is accessing that data. So the same principles apply here. So if somebody accesses the data, yeah, that data is going to get pulled down. But that is also the area where we are trying to do some fine-grained policies and optimization so that data may get pulled down, but unless it is modified, it will not get re-uploaded. It may get discarded locally. So some optimizations along those lines are in the works, but just like with DST, you would have to have some exclusion policies to make sure that you don't unnecessarily pull down the files from your cloud storage.
Right, Madan, an additional comment to that is while the namespace is integrated for end users, right, because when they are going to individual folders, they get to see files that are both local and as well as remote. But on the other hand, on the back end, the namespace is split, right? The files that are local are kept in one particular volume, and the files whose data has been migrated off to a cloud store are kept in a separate volume, right? So it's a lot easier to create these exclusion policies for backup or antivirus and ensure that those files and those content is not pulled down, right? So it's an integrated namespace experience for end users, but on the back end, it's split namespace so that you can manage the migrated files a lot more effectively. Right. Back to you, Madhu.
Thanks, Vijay. And there's one other question. Says that it's too bad that we need to do an extra install to get CAS stats for local storage volumes. You may not need to really do an extra install. All you might need to do is probably upgrade your servers to OES 2018 and you get going. So I know this is not the best experience. You'd probably want all of these capabilities deployed and be available on whatever versions of OES you're using today. But then we'll also have to live with the technology constraints the later platforms offer more features for us also to develop on top and deliver more value. So that's where we have to strike a balance. And so yes, you don't need to really do a new install. You upgrade one of your servers to OES 2018, you'll be able to start playing around with CAS today. Okay, the follow-up question from Anderson Lee. DST only supports NCP. CIFS only supports NCP, CIFS not FTP support. CSCM to DST support to NCP, CIFS also. Okay, to start with, CAS will support access over the CIFS protocol. Things might work, but we are not going to claim support over NCP with this release. Things might, like I said, things might work. We have found it working internally, but there may be few corner cases we think we may still have some work to do and address. So with this SP1 release, CAS will be supported access, client-side access for CAS will be supported only over the CIFS protocol. NCP support will be added subsequently post SP1. Okay, the question on OES 2018 SP1 release date. We are expecting to go beta sometime in late third quarter of this calendar year, and the release will be towards the end of the year or the early part of next year. It all depends on how much we are able to work with you and streamline a lot of the capabilities that are there in SP1 or even outside of CAS. So there's going to be a separate webinar, probably a month or month and a half from now, where we'll go over what's being planned for OES 2018 SP1 and a little more deterministic timeline on SP1 at the time. But for now, take it as that you'll get it somewhere between say around December, January timeframe is the target we are working with. That it may be a little off here and there. Why SP1 is so late with many new features? More than many new features, there are areas where we are chosen to improve. For example, I'll take an example of the SWIFT protocol, for example, and I'll also give some examples with NCP. There are areas where we have been playing catch up for a bit. We introduced SMB2 and SMB 2.1 and certain capabilities SMB3 in 2015, SP1 and 2018. Now, with SP1, we want to stop playing catch up and we want to focus on areas like performance and see that either we are improving or better than Microsoft in certain areas, or in areas where we are lagging. It's all nothing that you would really notice or be worried about. So a lot of focus is going on into the quality, performance and scale aspects of all these components, and we don't want to keep status quo. So for the last couple of releases, we have focused on features, and we have kept the non-functional aspects of the platform pretty constant. But with OES 2018 SP1, we want to make a big dent on the non-functional aspect. We want to improve the scalability from where we have been so far. We want to improve the performance from where we have been so far. There is also work going on for things like NCP performance, NCP encryption. There are quite a bit that is going on. New 4K disk support, for example. The newer vendors are starting to stop the 512 byte emulation support and starting to do only 4K disks native support. So you want OES to run natively on the hardware, then you need the 4K disk support natively. So there's a lot of underlying infrastructure level work that's going on in the file systems and the protocol areas, which, as you know, they are very core, and getting it right is very critical. So we may be done with development soon, but that's going to require a lot of QA cycles to ensure that the quality is at the same level you are used to. So we are going to be taking our time to ensure that we'll release it when we are ready for all these underlying infrastructure changes are stable and to be ready to be consumed, with you noticing only good things about it after we release. So that's why it's taking a lot of time for us. So I think we are almost on top of the hour, and I think there are no more new questions in the chat window at this point. which means I'll probably thank everyone for joining us today. I know some of you who have been very active listening and asking the questions have joined us not from EMEA or Asia or North America, where the timeline is pretty acceptable. Some of those are from Asia Pac, where it's probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the early morning. So thank you for your interest. Next time around, we'll see that we'll schedule probably one more call to address the Asia Pac audience. So once again, thanks everyone for joining us today and making this very interactive and sharing those and answering those polls which will influence our work. We'll get in touch with all those who have expressed interest in working with us offline on this, and we'll take your feedback to shape this technology going forward into OES 2018 SP1. Thanks again.